So after weeks of telling the nation and its members that mayoral candidates would be announced at the local government manifesto launch, the ANC is instead calling an emergency NEC meeting. That could only mean one thing. It is a war zone in there. Factions are putting up huge resistance. Candidates preferred by the national leadership have been rejected. Yet, ironically, the past weekend's events are a metaphor for the ANC's more than 30 years in government. It always makes promises it never keeps. Hello everyone. Welcome back to Joe Talks Politics. I am your host, Joseph Mosia. Let's get right into this. The ANC's latest local government manifesto has 6 core pillars, covering service delivery, economic development, safe communities, municipal finances, ethical government, and public participation. In other words, almost exactly the same problems it promised to fix in 2021. What everybody was looking forward to was who is the party entrusting with leading their campaigns in the different battleground cities and metros. Even more importantly, who will be standing against the likes of Helen Zille of the DA and Herman Mashaba of Action SA in the all-important Joburg Metro. The ANC is already far behind other parties whose mayoral candidates are already on the ground. That expectation did not come out of nowhere. It was Secretary General Fikile Mbalula who promised the country that the party would unveil its candidates ahead of the manifesto launch.
We have undergone a process of vetting of these people, which is what is delaying us, because we don't want to announce people and tomorrow they've got scandals and all of that. So we are thorough in terms of the process. So we will unveil them leading up to the manifesto launch.
So what happened? Why was the announcement not made?
So behind the whole thing for us is to ensure that we have a party mindset, and then of which the candidate comes out of a process of campaigning by everybody. And in this particular instance, it will be very easy for this thing to shift to be on the shoulders of individuals. So we are traversing a new terrain we have never embarked upon of mayoral candidates, because we announce our candidates after every election. So we are not hard and fast as we introduce this about it. And therefore, we think the starting point should be this and get everybody to focus on campaigning for the next 2 months.
The truth is that the ANC cannot help itself. Even if individual leaders genuinely want to clean it up, factionalism and sectoral interests are deeply entrenched, so whoever is announced will face resistance. But most importantly, the party's obsession with centralized control is a real problem. The ANC has increasingly centralized the power to decide who will stand as its mayoral candidates, particularly in the major metros and cities. On paper, that makes sense. National leaders can take a broader view of electability, consider polling, the state of the party brand and the national campaign, and prevent local factions from simply choosing whoever controls the regional machinery. But it creates a fundamental tension. The people who understand the local political terrain and who will ultimately have to campaign for that candidate may feel that someone has been imposed on them from above. And when that happens, a national leadership decision can become a local political liability. The danger is that central control does not necessarily produce political control. Luthuli House can announce a candidate, but it cannot automatically make every faction, councillor or branch member enthusiastic about campaigning for that person. A defeated faction can comply with the decision while withholding its political energy or simply wait for the opportunity to challenge the decision later. In a party already weakened by internal divisions and a damaged public brand, that is particularly dangerous. In the case of Joburg, for example, Loyiso Masuku is the elected regional chairperson. She and her supporters believe she should have been the automatic choice. Her supporters might struggle to go out and galvanize support for Dada Morero should he be the national office's imposed candidate. So in reality, the impasse in Joburg was the main reason the candidates were not announced at the weekend. But if you think this is simply a Johannesburg problem, look at Ekurhuleni. In fact, Ekurhuleni may give us an even clearer picture of the factional tensions behind the ANC's failure to announce its mayoral candidates. Here, the contest isn't simply about which candidate can give the ANC the best chance of winning. The two main players in Ekurhuleni are Nkosindiphile Xhakaza, the current mayor and ANC regional chair, and Jongizizwe Dlabathi, the ANC regional secretary and a senior member of the city's executive. Dlabathi reportedly performed strongly in the party's candidate selection process and emerged as a leading contender, while Xhakaza, as the sitting mayor and regional chair, has an obvious interest in retaining the position. The tension became particularly stark when Xhakaza moved to remove Dlabathi as finance MMC, a move that Gauteng ANC leadership stopped. Frankly, Joburg and Ekurhuleni are a small sample of how, despite assurances by Ramaphosa and others to do away with factionalism, it continues to bedevil the party. The failure to announce the candidates over the weekend is a metaphor for the ANC's performance in government. It always promises the world and delivers so little. It promises clean water, it promises roads, it promises sanitation, and it promises an end to corruption. Yet communities where it is in power go for months without water, sewage runs in the streets, motorists have their tires slashed by gaping potholes, and money keeps disappearing into the pockets of officials and their friends and families. This is a party that is going to ask South Africans to trust it to improve governance at local government level. The idea to interview mayoral candidates is a very clever publicity stunt, but honestly, it is not what will improve local government. A mayor may score brilliantly in an interview and still arrive in a municipality where councillors are divided into factions, political appointments are contested, officials lack capacity, procurement is vulnerable to interference, coalition partners have their own agendas, and party structures expect the mayor to satisfy competing interests. If the mayor tries to reform the administration, those interests can become a political obstacle. So you can end up selecting a competent individual and putting that person into a system that rewards political survival rather than good administration. There is also a fundamental distinction between selecting a mayor and building a functioning municipality. Good local government depends on competent municipal managers and senior officials, functioning financial controls, reliable procurement systems, effective oversight, capable councillors, professional administration, and consequences for corruption and non-performance. In other words, the ANC's problems go far beyond announcing mayoral candidates. It needs to convince South Africans that it has truly learned from its past mistakes. While rivals are busy exposing its municipal failures to local communities, the ANC's incompetence is in full display after failing to deliver on its promise to name its mayoral candidates by this past weekend. These guys have even called a special National Executive Committee meeting to try and resolve this issue. This is not a sign of a party that is overly democratic. It is a sign of a party at war with itself. What do you think? You can be part of this discussion by posting your views in the comment section below and liking the video. And please don't forget to subscribe. That's all for this episode of Joe Talks Politics. From me, Joseph Mosia. See you in the next one.